and the band and the cheer and the dance and our fans and our alums and our parents. That's really cool. First time I got a chance to experience it. And then just the whole atmosphere. I thought there was a lot of energy in the building, in the stadium, and I think our kids thrived on that. They handled the delay really well. That didn't bother them at all. They handled the short halftime really well, 15-minute halftime. All those little things they handled really well. So, we made progress from week 1 to week 2 in terms of consistency, execution, those kind of things. And those the kind of things I was looking for us to do to improve from week 1 to week 2. We just came off the field and we had a great practice. You can just see ready to step up to big boy football. And, they know that there's a great opponent coming in. And so, there's a lot of excitement in the building. I think we feel good that training camp through the first 2 weeks of the season, we've progressed. And now we get a chance to get a major test against a top 15 team that is an historic program, just has an historic history. And again, I think our kids are ready and are excited to go to battle. So, questions?
I was thinking, it seemed almost purposeful after the game. You made a reference to, you didn't name Oklahoma's, but right, you made a reference to, we can't do this against whoever we're playing next.
Yeah.
Is that right? Is that philosophically?
Yeah. So when we looked at the tape, there was definitely okay, we did some really good things, but these things aren't going to fly against Oklahoma. These little details. We have to do all the little things because they're full-grown ass men. They do, and they're very talented. They put together a great roster. So you just saw them beat a highly ranked Michigan team this past weekend. So I think our guys are conscious of the fact that we need to step our game up a level because those little things are gonna where we might be able to get a completion, now we're gonna get a sack because that extra tick isn't gonna happen against Oklahoma. We could get away with that against Howard, but we're not gonna get away with that against Oklahoma. So.
How you approach a guy like Keeler, the quarterback?
Yeah, boy. Yeah, I love his style. Dual threat guy. Ran the ball 19 times this past weekend. When they want to get a yard or they need to make a play, they put the ball in his hands. I think that's a combination of his talent, but also the comfortableness that the old coordinator has with him. That's his guy. And sometimes when you bring your guy with you, you have a tendency to, know his traits a little bit and, feed him a little bit more. Love his throwing motion. Boy, he's really mechanically sound, very accurate. They have a bunch of weapons, but no, he's really super talented. He really is. It's going to be important for us to get as many hits on him as possible. It's a cumulative thing. He took 19 rushing hits, also a couple of hits in the pocket on top of that. So, those kind of things add up. I'm sure our kid would be really sore if he took that many hits. And, you gotta, when he pulls the ball down and becomes a running back, you gotta, he has to pay the price. So, but I think the reason they lean on him so much is there's this belief from the old coordinator to the quarterback because they lived together, in the past, and they know each other, and there's a lot of trust there.
So you talked about consistency and execution. How was practice today, and how were you going to, handle practices for the rest of the week leading up to Saturday?
Yeah, no, it's one of those things where you don't really have to say anything. I'm sure our kids probably after a nice victory sat around watching some TV, and it might have been Oklahoma and Michigan. And it wasn't hard to figure out very quickly that this is one of the best teams in the country that's going to be fighting to get in that playoff and fight for a national championship. And that, this is going to be a great test for us. And so I just saw it out there today where we were talking to our defense about, communication, and they were getting better. They took a huge jump today. they took a huge jump today. And that's sometimes like, you just need a game like this to be put in your lap because they know that we can get embarrassed if we don't execute. Now we win the turnover battle and we execute, we'll be right there. I like our chances to be right there. And that's all we're asking to do. We just want to be right there, and then you win those games in the end. So, but yeah, I mean, if we don't execute, we don't have a chance. And I think our guys understand that, and that's why you saw the level of focus. You can't invent that. That has to be real. And our guys saw that game and go, "Guys, pretty good football team, coming to Philly." And so I saw our level of attention to detail make a big jump today.
I think it's a question more often for when you're playing maybe an option team, but do you, when you're looking at your scout team quarterback this week, Cam, or whoever, you want try to find somebody who can give you a good look of a tier, and who might that be?
Well, yeah, I mean, you're not going to ever get like his skill set, because if you had that skill set, he's our starting quarterback right now at Temple. But I mean, he's a special talent, and so you try to segment it where there's some things he does that maybe one of our scout team guys does better, and so you try to fit him in there. So it's hard, it's just like you said, playing the academies. Tough to simulate the academies. When you have such a talented dual threat quarterback like they have, I mean, it's really pretty difficult to get a great simulation. You can just, do your best, but from watching tape that he's not afraid to get downhill. And he'll take a hit now. And he'll pop right back up. He's a pretty impressive young man.
Do you expect them to get their backs a little bit more involved? Because they went from an easier game to a much harder game, but Tier's been their leading rusher.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything on film where they look like they tried getting the running game going, haven't been able to do it, or has it been more intentional?
No, again, I think it's the comfort zone of the offensive coordinator. He knows what he has in the quarterback, and so that's his comfort zone. And you get that extra hat when he's running the ball. So I think it's hard to think that there's going to be a lot of change, because I think they've had success and they feel comfortable with the amount of times he can touch the ball. Obviously, he's a physical specimen. For him to get hit as many times as he's gotten hit the first 2 weeks, that shows a guy who he's an impressive young man. So I think we were a little surprised that their running backs weren't as involved. But now when you look at it, you go, that's their comfort zone right now. As the season goes on, they'll probably get their running backs a little bit more involved. But I think their comfort zone is leaning on the quarterback.
How are you preparing yourself for the chess match that you're going to have against Coach Williams? Listen, how are you preparing yourself as the head coach for the chess match you're going to have against Coach Williams?
My chess match is really a lot different than a lot of head coaches. Again, I'm not going to call a single play on Saturday. My chess match is getting them to the game. My chess match is managing that game. My chess match is getting in their heads, what's going to happen out there and how we're going to react to the things that happen out there. My chess match is that, them understanding that if these things happen, we can win a football game. So that's my chess match. I will sit in with both coordinators and we'll go through game plans and, watch a lot of tape. But, they'll call every single snap out there on Saturday.
So you talked a lot about, I guess, the Tier's running ability, which I'm assuming that the linebackers are going to have to play a big part. And you guys are being able to cycle out the linebackers play by play. How confident are you to be able to, I guess, kind of contain the Tier with the fresh linebackers that you'll be able to get in and get out every single drive?
Well, the first thing is we believe we're probably going to get some tempo. That's their history. They like to use tempo, and so we need to be prepared that when that ball goes out of bounds on into our sideline, great time to get subs. When the ball goes out of bounds on their sideline, it is an automatic substitution situations. So we have to be smart about getting guys on and off the field, but they're not going to let us free substitute. They're going to play as much tempo as possible. And we just have to monitor those situations. I like our depth. I think it's very important that we get guys on and off the field. But I think, you know, we all believe that that's one of the things that they're going to lean into is their tempo. And, you know, we get tempo from our offense. So it's not like we don't see it in the spring and those kind of things, because in our offense, we can tempo you all day long, or we can, you know, get a little bit more exotic with some of our formations and motions and shifts and those kind of things. So it's nice having that variety, because our guys have seen tempo, you know, a good part of the spring and in the summer.
How much do you get into?
Keeler has been one of your top receivers throughout the start of the season, and he's currently ranked top 15 out of the rest of the receivers in the American Conference. He's sitting at 14. How key is his production been for your offense, and how key will it be this week?
Who'd you say?
Peter Clark.
Oh yeah, Peter. Yeah, Peter has had a really great start to the season. You know, here's a guy that we challenged when he came in. You know, he's a big body, and we challenged him to become a better blocker, and he's really taken that on. And he just has really stepped up on game day and made some great catches. He's more athletic than you think he would be, being such a large human being. Yeah, he's now become a big part of that offense. He and Ryder, you know, we feel really good that we can put, you know, 12 personnel out there, and we have, you know, some talented kids. But you know, Peter's on our leadership council. He was honorary captain last week. He's a big part of this football program, and it's really neat to see him just grow. You know, the last 9 months is, you know, that we've been here, and you know, we're reaping the benefits of how well he's playing.
How much does his blocking come into play on Saturday? You talk about that extra tip when you're facing
Yep.
a team like him, so looking at tackles on the edge. How much does he staying back a little bit more? How much does that come into play for him Saturday?
Yeah, so just knowing that you have a body like that you can use in a lot of different situations, because I obviously not going to give you the game plan, and also the fact you have a guy like Ryder who just keeps on getting better and better and better. It's, you know, important against a physical defense like they have, that you have some tight ends that, you know, can help you in a lot of different situations.
How much do you get into watching the game tape from last year, particularly like, you know, Ben might have covered these receivers, or Jackson, Grayson,
Yeah.
probably blocked some of these
Not a
times.
whole lot. It's really more the last 2 weeks, and then taking a little peek at what's going on at Washington State in terms of how they use the quarterback, how like he used tempo, just what he liked to do inside the 20. You know, I mean, coordinators, we all adapt to our personnel, but coordinators have certain things that they really like. And so, you know, you go back and look at some of the things that, you know, they did at Washington State now, especially since they had a quarterback that came along with him. You know, you're looking back at not only the last couple of weeks of what they've done, but also you look at some of the Washington State stuff and saying, okay, there's some carryover from what they did at Washington State to what they're doing here now.
Do you address at all the result of last year's Temple Oklahoma game with these guys, or
No.
just?
I don't even know it existed. They might remember it existed. I don't know it existed. So I don't think there's any relevance to it whatsoever. So yeah, no, I personally haven't even thought about. I couldn't tell you what the score was. It's kind of a non-factor.
How are you approaching things at quarterback with Evan and Giovanni this week? Are
Yeah.
they still both going to play?
Well, I think obviously the way Evan's playing, you know, I think he's rated as he has the highest QB rating in the country or something like that. I don't know, whatever. He has some stat out there. I don't really get too crazy about that stuff. Yeah, he's obviously going to be our starter, you know, and then we know Giovanni is ready to go at any time. And I would not be surprised to see Giovanni on the field, you know, this week. But again, I think we all feel like, okay, what Evan has done the last 2 weeks, you know, he needs to go out there and be our starter, knowing that in some situational stuff, we have, you know, an opportunity to get Giovanni in there, especially in a physical game like this, where you might want to, you know, do some different things to, you know, take some pressure off of Evan. But yeah, I mean, you know, Evan's a big reason why we're, you know, ranked so high, you know, nationally in a lot of categories offensively. He's had just a terrific season so far. A lot of it is him improving. A lot of it is him having a great grasp of this offense. And I also think a lot of it is the fact that we've, you know, put some talented guys around him. You know, so you can see we got the running game going this week, and that just opens up so many things in the passing game. So, yeah, I mean, like I said, the offense is clicking right now. Hopefully we can keep it moving that direction.
And
Because it's such a physical game next week, do you see yourself using Jay, Hunter, and Torres and rotating?
Yeah, so I think because it is a physical game, we like to play some extra bodies. And you know, we've been a little bit of a running back by committee, and it was great to see Hunter have that big run. You can see he's getting healthy. You know, we kind of get him off the fender bender line and put him into our offense, knowing that he was going to be coming off an injury. And you know, he keeps on progressing. Every week he's getting better. And that was a big run, you know, that he made. And you know, Therese is that electric guy that, boy, he puts his foot in the ground and you know, he can just take it north-south. And Duck has shown that, you know, he just got that consistency. So I think we have, you know, that's a pretty good room now. That's a pretty good room. And, you know, playing 3 or 4 of those guys is going to be really critical because it's going to be a more physical game than we've experienced so far this year.
Is JoJo your guy at punt return now? I know that
Yeah.
punt return got called back, but
Yeah.
still.
That was pretty spectacular, wasn't it? Yeah, he's pretty good now. I would think that JoJo will be in some sort of either be the guy or in some sort of rotation back there. But yeah, no, or as I say, some sort of rotation. You know, we don't take JoJo off the field a lot in offense. So like, if he needs a blow, he might get it there. But yeah, I think we feel really good that we have a couple guys who can punt return, and you know, we've been close in special teams. You know, a couple penalties have really hurt us. But I'm hoping that if we have a chance to win this game, we can't lose on special teams. You know, we have to make some plays on special teams. We can't have penalties on special teams. So, but we have some returners. And I think what excites a special teams unit is to know if they make their blocks, there's a chance. And I think we can say that both on kickoff return and punt return. If you make your blocks, we have a chance. And so I think that's a great motivation for a special teams unit.
He gave Jalen Stewart a little run at the end of that game. He got okay pretty fast here.
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things where we got to keep on progressing you. If we get into a game where, you know, we can get you into, we got to play you because you've been cleared. You got to start stepping up from getting scout team work to getting a couple reps with the 2s and 3s. But we're so deep at linebacker right now. I think we're all really pleased with how the linebackers have stepped up. That him getting healthy the second part of the year is just going to be a big bonus for us. It's nothing like we need him for this week or next week, but I think, you know, getting to the bye week eventually and that extra time there, that's when we're hoping that we have that extra body, you know, that can really help us later down the season. Again, it's a game of attrition. It's just so important that we keep on adding bodies and not lose bodies. And I go, he's a guy that definitely can help us. But I would think that's going to be more after the bye week than anything else.
How would you assess how Jacoby's played at left tackle in the first couple of weeks?
Yeah.
What kind of challenges he facing this
Yeah,
week?
you know, if you think about it, here's a guy who probably wasn't going to be a starter for us, and then got an opportunity. And, you know, I would hear all the time from our offensive line coach, Al Johnson, it's like, he's doing the drills great. He just got to put it together for, you know, to play like in a scrimmage. And more, you know, teamwork. And, you know, sometimes the best thing is just to throw him into the deep end. He got thrown into the deep end against UMass and played well. And so I think he's a work in progress. I think that, you know, he doesn't even know how good he can get eventually, but it's going to, you know, it's kind of week by week by week by week. So, and getting Kevin some snaps was huge for us. So we're hoping to get in a situation where we can take 3 tackles and, you know, kind of even out some reps. And because again, the best teams I've had have been able to, you know, have some interchangeable parts on the offensive line because the season wears on, those guys get banged up. You know, fourth quarter, if a guy's gotten, you know, 15 reps off during the first 3 quarters, all of a sudden that fourth quarter is a lot fresher. So that's the goal. Like, we would love to be able to play 3 tackles.
You know, Oklahoma Collective, they announced last week that they had put $32 million towards their NIL, which I don't know if you're quite even 1/10 of the way there. Like, do you see that? I mean, not that it's any different than sort of what their history is and what their talent is, but do you see that?
Yeah, well, I think those, you know, I think probably Florida has put a lot more money into South Florida, even though South Florida has made a pretty significant investment now, but they haven't made the same investment in Florida has. So, you know, it's just amazing. Like, those, obviously, we all want money to invest in our guys. I think we put together a really good team with not the dollar amount that, you know, we're probably going to need in the future. Because now, in my opinion, the single most important thing is retaining players. You want to build a program, don't go out and get 60 new guys off the street. Keep your players. And that's going to be my big push, is that we need this revenue share to keep our players. We have a really nice young group. People are going to try to come in and pillage us because we do have some good young talent. We need to be able to keep those kids. And part of that is them feeling good about the culture. Part of that is the fact that they love going to Temple. And that was one of the things that when I took over was a constant theme of all the guys who I met with individually. It was like, they love going to school here. They love the city. They just want to get this football program, back up and going and get it fixed. And so I walked out of that 4.5 days of meeting every single player saying, there's a lot to work with here because these kids love going to school here and they want to get this thing right. So yeah, there's a lot more money out there than we all even know. But I can only deal with what I have right now. And I think what we've shown in terms of product on the field so far, and the fact that we've really done a great job in recruiting high school kids, if you help me with that revenue share money, I'm going to be able to bring in some really good transfer players too, because this is a great place to sell. Philadelphia, the history this program has had, the brotherhood that's already here. I just had a meeting with our leadership council, and it was so cool. I'm a guy who, like, our practice players aren't on the sideline, and that's a hardship for some guys. I'm more concerned about winning than anything else. And I've done this too long to know that even the best young man who's in civvies on that sideline can't help himself from talking to a player when we have a 30-point lead. And I just can't have it. Again, 32 years of doing this, I have more cautionary tales than I care to remember. And in the leadership group, they're like, Coach, we agree with you. That sideline was really good. There was no distractions. However, we need to find a better way to take care of those guys. Now we are clothing them. We give them a lot of great gear. We are feeding them. We feed them really well. I do honor the practice player of the week. That's a big deal. But they want something more for these guys. I just think that just is a testament to where we are as a program right now. Those little things catch my ear. And it was really cool because they're fighting for guys that are in that locker room saying, listen, we get it. We were on that sideline. We understand 100%. There was no distractions. We don't necessarily need those guys on the sideline. We're not fighting for that, but we're fighting for them to get more recognition, make sure that they know how appreciated they are. To me, that speaks volumes about your program, because they weren't fighting for themselves, they're fighting for their teammates, those guys in the locker room. And I think that's where we're going right now. And I think that's why we're recruited so well. When recruits have come on campus and met our players, they can see there's a brotherhood already. In a short period of time, this has happened. And that's a great example of that brotherhood. And I listen to those guys. And when I'm in that leadership council meeting, what they say is important to me. And they're the ones who said, Coach, here's an agenda for you. And they're the ones who spelled it out, like they want something more special for those guys. Not fighting for them to get on the sideline, but we're fighting for them to get more recognition in terms of what we can do for them. And so we're working on that. I met with Evan Simon after that to talk about some ideas, and he's going to start floating it through the rest of the leadership group. But yeah, I think we're going in a good direction right now.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, thanks, guys.